What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's the Muay Thai Mechanic here. So really excited for what we got going on today with the build. We're going to be adding more to the Carli suspension system here. We have our control arms and our adjustable track bar going onto the truck today. So again, really excited about this. I'm also excited to be doing this piece by piece rather than one whole kit together, because I'll actually be able to feel the little differences that each individual hard part of the Carli suspension system makes, and kind of let you guys know, again, what the feel is and whatnot for each individual piece and how it affected the ride quality of the truck. So pretty excited about this. We're going to go ahead, we're going to break down all the super smart engineering, technology, all that stuff that goes into this and what makes these suspension systems so efficient, effective, and like good quality and whatnot. So let's go ahead and let's get to it.
Now, what I love about Carli suspension systems, aside from the fact that it makes your truck just ride and handle overall so much better, is the engineering that goes into the technology to make all of this happen. Starting with the control arms, if you look at their metal bushings that they have, what I learned from Carli is actually that they are spherical bushings that not only turn and rotate as the axle articulates, but if the axle, say, articulates on one side but stays flat on the other, it's a spherical bushing, so it can actually turn 365 all the way around, every degree, every angle that it can go in. And this again allows true movement and freedom to the axle to ride, versus a traditional control arm. If it shifts side to side or articulates, it's not going to be quite as smooth. And I'm telling you, this little feature that might not seem like such a huge deal does. It makes an enormous difference in the ride quality and handling of the vehicle. Now, coming over here to the track bar, here on the side where it connects to the axle, there is a Heim joint that again rotates 365 like a ball and socket joint, so that way as the axle articulates, it can move freely forward, back, up, down, left, right, all that good stuff. And then on the other side, there is also a rubber vibration dampener as well too, to help stop some of the road noise and vibrations that might travel up through the truck. Now I'm going to do a more in-depth review on the entire suspension system and highlighting some of these features of the suspension system, but I can say that if there's one thing that every Dodge owner should do to their truck, it would be to replace their track bar and use this track bar. It is well worth the money. I think if anything, it's undervalued and underestimated just how much of a difference this piece can make. Start with the truck on level ground and work on removing the lower control arms first. Normally the camber bolts are very rusted and you have to cut them out with a Sawzall. Now, I had previously done the lower control arms in my truck before, and when I did, I heavily greased the camber bolts, and this time around I got very lucky because the camber bolts slid right out with any type of fuss. And honestly, I almost couldn't believe it when the camber bolts slid right out. Super lucky on that. So I highly recommend greasing up your bolts, your bushings, everything, and you'll probably hear me say that consistently throughout the video, to grease all of your bolts, your bushings, just to again help fight off the corrosion and rust. Now, I wanted to get everything ready to install, so I went ahead and just put the lower control arm in place. And Carli actually labels their control arms where they go. They are specific to the location. This one's the lower driver's side. You can also kind of see and figure it out just from the way the labeling is on the side with the logo, as well as the length of the control arms too, and the grease fittings. But again, it's labeled there, so you don't have to stress about trying to figure out where the control arms exactly go. As I stated earlier too, I greased the camber bolts and that really helped out. So I always recommend greasing your bushings, bolts, and everything before installing, just to help fight off and prevent corrosion. The upper control arm bolt was a little rusted on for me, so I had to get a little creative, turn around and use my leg to turn the ratchet and get that undone. Just gotta be creative sometimes when working on your vehicle. Another thing, if you notice the holes aren't lining up so you can't get the camber bolts through, what you can always do is try and push or press the axle away to create space. You can also get into the truck, put it in gear as you see here, and back it up just a hair. You could even use a chalk block to keep the tire in place too, and that should go ahead and do the trick. As always, go ahead and grease those camber bolts right up. And with the upper control arms, it's the same thing. Carli labels all their stuff. Just pay attention to the label and the grease fittings so they go in the proper direction. It might take some finagling to get the upper control arm into place. Might have to adjust the camber bolt, whatever. Also helps to take out the brake line bracket as well to make room to move that up there if you have to do that too. Go ahead, grease up all your bolts, bushings, tighten everything on up, and then on to the next side. It's going to be the same process pretty much on the passenger side. The only difference is that your downpipe does get in the way of taking off one of the upper control arm bolts. So you can undo it and kind of finagle it off to the side. Me, I was lucky enough to have to take off my entire exhaust system to get to that bolt to be able to take it out. But again, that's part of the process when it comes to working on your own vehicle. As stated before, Carli labels all of their products. So if you look here, this one is labeled as the lower passenger side. Pay attention to the grease fittings as well as the labeling so that way you make sure it goes in the proper direction. Grease up those bushings and bolts, put it back together and tighten it all up. Moving on to the track bar. So you're going to want to turn the steering wheel all the way to the right, and this is going to grant you easier access to the bolt that goes in and connects the track bar to the axle. Personally, I like to disconnect this bolt first and then disconnect the frame side of the track bar next. Then putting the new track bar in, I like to connect the axle side first because that heim joint, again, it's like a ball and socket joint. It's going to move all over the place and just makes it easier to fit in and play with to get the frame side of the track bar in. I didn't quite get the full track bar installation on video, but honestly, it's really simple. I've done it in 30 minutes or less before. This one did give me a little bit more trouble, but that's because of my own dumb mistake that I made. So let's go ahead now and take a look at the finished result. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, message or comment with any questions, and then don't forget to follow me on Instagram at blondie_5.9 and Muay Thai Mechanic.